The hot sun of Ethelgard, the color of rust and copper, pressed down mercilessly on the shoulders of Jax Cole as he stood on the roof of his research module. In his hands was a hydrographic tablet, and in his mind, only the numbers and graphs that gave sparse but honest forecasts. For 2 years, he had worked as a bioengineer, trying to bring this lifeless world to life, and each day was like the last. The arid air in his lungs was as lifeless as his loneliness. He came to Ethelgard to escape the mistakes he left behind on Earth, a failed project that could have changed the climate, and a loss he still couldn't overcome. He was alone, but didn't complain. His work was his only companion, his only redemption. Below him stretched the Silver Sands outpost, a chaotic jumble of prefabricated structures and makeshift shelters where humans and a dozen alien species tried to coexist in a semblance of harmony. In the distance, the carved dwellings of the Kithari were visible, carved directly into the rocks, which reflected the setting sun, creating the illusion of molten gold. Jax took a long pull from his canteen, and the cool water brought welcome relief. Another day, he muttered, rubbing his eyes. He always kept his head down, preferring not to attract attention, but his height and broad shoulders made him conspicuous among the outpost's short, slender inhabitants. A sudden sound of footsteps, fast and desperate, tore him from his reverie. Jax turned and saw a small figure racing toward him along a narrow path, kicking up puffs of orange dust. As the figure drew closer, he realized it was a Kithari, a cat-like humanoid child. She looked no more than 7 years old. Her bright orange fur was dull with dust, and there were scratches on her thin, long ears. What struck Jax most were her eyes, large, amber, and filled with unmistakable terror. "Whoa there, little one," Jax said, straightening as she skidded to a halt before him. "What's the rush?" Her small body heaved with exertion. Tears cut clean tracks through the grime on her face. She reached out with tiny, trembling paws and clutched his pant leg. "Please," she gasped between sobs. "I beg you, follow me home." Jax knelt to her level, his brow furrowing. "Are you hurt? What happened?" "Mama won't wake up," she whispered, tugging desperately at his sleeve. "Please help. No one else will come." Jax hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Lead the way." Her grip tightened, and she pulled him through a maze of narrow passages between the ruins. They ventured into a section where the dwellings were carved directly into the rocks, and the air hung heavy with unfamiliar spices and exhaust fumes. "What's your name?" Jax asked as they hurried along. "Kaelin," she replied without looking back. "Mama calls me just Kale." They stopped before a small den, hollowed out of a rock wall. The door hung askew on a single hinge, and the walls were crudely patched with pieces of metal. Kaelin hesitated at the threshold, her small frame rigid with fear. "In there," she whispered. Jax gently squeezed her shoulder. "Stay behind me." "Okay." The smell hit him first. A sickly sweet odor mixed with decay and chemical residue. The interior was dark, with light filtering only through a small, grimy window. As his eyes adjusted, Jax took in the squalor. Used food containers, broken furniture, and scattered syringes littered the floor. In the center of the room lay a Kithari woman, her orange fur faded, her body lifelessly stretched out. A thin trickle of purple fluid had dried at the corner of her mouth. Next to her outstretched hand lay broken pieces of lab equipment, telling a story that Jax had already pieced together. "Damn it," he breathed, checking for a pulse he knew wouldn't be there. The woman's skin was cold. She had been dead for hours. Kaelin pushed past him, dropping to her knees beside the body. "Mama, I brought help. Please wake up." Jax's heart constricted painfully in his chest. He'd seen this scene on Earth, in the forgotten corners of megacities where synthetic drugs killed thousands. He never expected to find the same tragedy on a colony world. "Kaelin," he said gently, placing a hand on her thin shoulder. "I'm so sorry. Your mama, she's gone." The girl looked up at him, her large eyes uncomprehending. "But she'll wake up. She always wakes up. Not this time, little one." Jax swallowed hard against the lump in his throat. Kaelin's face crumpled. "I tried to help her. I did everything right." I was quiet when she needed quiet. I found food when she forgot. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I haven't eaten in 3 days. Something inside Jax broke. The dam of emotion he'd built since leaving Earth collapsed. He gathered the small, alien child in his arms, her body frighteningly light against his chest. This isn't your fault, he said fiercely. None of this is your fault. As Kaylin sobbed, pressed against him, Jax surveyed the squalid room, rage and sorrow battling within him. What the hell was he supposed to do now? Colonial authorities would place the girl in some kind of system, most likely where non-human children would not receive proper care. I'm hungry, Kaylin whispered, her voice muffled. Then we'll get you food, Jax replied without hesitation. And we'll figure out the rest after that. I promise. He carried her out of that house of death into the last rays of Ethelgard's setting sun. He had no plan beyond his next step, but an unshakable certainty that he wouldn't abandon this child to the indifferent machinery of colonial bureaucracy. Jax sat across from Kaylin in a small corner of Old Man Silas's hydroponics, the only place on the outpost where you could find fresh fruits and vegetables grown in special biodomes. Old Man Silas, the farm's owner, took one look at the disheveled pair and wordlessly brought over 2 plates of food without asking for payment. Kaylin devoured her food with desperate intensity. Jax watched her, his own appetite diminished. Slow down a bit, little one, he advised gently. You'll make yourself sick. The girl paused, forcing herself to take smaller bites. Her large amber eyes darted around the farm, taking in the vibrant plants and humming machines with wary curiosity. What happens now? She asked between mouthfuls, her small translator embedded in her collar, converting her soft, cat-like sounds into standard English. Jax ran a hand through his hair. I need to report what happened to the Colonial Authority. They have a procedure for. Kaylin's fork clattered to the table. They'll send me to the Juvenile Integration Center. Tavi from my learning pod went there when her parent died. She said the caretakers are mean to Kid Hari. Jax frowned. I'm sure they wouldn't. They made her sleep in the cold section because her body temperature was different, Kaylin insisted. And they wouldn't let her have proper food. She got sick. A familiar burn of anger kindled in Jax's chest. He'd seen similar institutional callousness on Earth. He had experienced it firsthand after his parents died. 3 years in the state system had taught him exactly how little bureaucracies cared about individual children. Please don't make me go there, Kaylin whispered, her large eyes glistening. Finish your food, Jax said quietly. We'll figure something out. As Kaylin returned to her meal, Jax's mind raced through options. He had a small research cabin, barely big enough for himself, let alone a child with different biological needs. His savings were modest, his knowledge of Kid Hari physiology non-existent. But the alternative? You're in a spot of trouble, aren't you, son? Jax looked up. Silas stood beside their table. The old man's weathered face held no judgment, only a knowing concern. Just helping out a kid who needs it, Jax replied cautiously. Silas nodded. Kid Hari girl, about 8 standard years by the look of her. Her mother was probably on ether bloom, wasn't she? Jax tensed. How did you know? Been seeing more cases lately, Silas replied. Nasty stuff hits their nervous system differently than humans. Silas glanced at Kaylin, who was focused on her food. Colonial authorities are overwhelmed. Their alien juvenile facilities are a damn disgrace. I heard they're headed by a woman named Elora Dane, a good person, but she lacks the resources. Silas leaned closer. Look, I don't know what you're planning, but if you're thinking of helping her yourself, you'll need to file for emergency guardianship. There's a woman at the administrative complex. Elora Dane works in interspecies family services. Tell her old man Silas sent you. Jax studied the old man. Why are you helping us? A shadow passed over Silas's face. Lost my daughter in a station disaster. She left behind 2 grandkids. The system would have separated them if I hadn't fought like hell. He straightened. Humans look after their own, and sometimes that means looking after others, too. After Silas walked away, Jax felt Kaylin's gaze on him. What's emergency guardianship? She asked. It means I'd be responsible for you until... Jax trailed off. The enormity of what he was considering suddenly overwhelmed him. until we figure out something permanent. Could I stay with you? The question hung in the air between them, simple yet impossibly complex. Jax had come to Ethelgard to escape his past, not to take on responsibility for a child, especially not an alien child whose needs he barely understood. Yet looking at her hopeful expression, he felt something shift inside him. Let's take it one step at a time, he said finally. First, we need to talk to this Allura Dane. The colonial administrative complex loomed over the central plaza of Silver Sands, its gleaming surfaces a stark contrast to the utilitarian structures surrounding it. Jax approached the imposing building with Kalen's small paw clutched in his, fighting the instinctive aversion to authority. At the reception desk, a bored-looking human clerk barely glanced up from his terminal. Purpose of visit: I need to speak with Allura Dane in Interspecies Family Services. It's urgent. The clerk's eyes flicked to Kalen, then back to Jax. Relationship to the minor? Jax hesitated. I found her. Her mother is deceased. Form 37B for reporting unaccompanied alien minors. Terminal 3. The clerk gestured vaguely toward a bank of screens. I don't want to report her. I want to apply for emergency guardianship. The clerk's eyebrows rose. That's unusual. Is Allura Dane available or not? Jax demanded, his patience wearing thin. The clerk sighed and tapped at his console. Level 4, Office 412, but without prior documentation. You're wasting your time. As they walked away, Kalen squeezed Jax's hand. Are you angry? Jax forced himself to relax his clenched jaw. Not at you. Sometimes bureaucracy just reminds me of things I'd rather forget. Bad things? She asked. Things that made me who I am, Jax replied. For better or worse. Office 412 was smaller than Jax had expected. The walls were lined with holographic displays showing families of mixed species. Behind a desk cluttered with data tablets sat Allura Dane, a woman in her mid-40s with kind eyes. Silas sent you? She stated rather than asked, gesturing for them to sit. Her name is Kalen. Her mother died of an overdose, and she has no one else. Allura's gaze softened as she looked at the Kit Hari child. I'm sorry for your loss, little one. She tapped a sequence on her desk console, and a small drawer slid open. Would you like a nutrient stick? It's formulated for Kit Hari physiology. Kalen glanced at Jax, who nodded encouragingly. She took the offered snack with a whispered thanks. So, Allura said, turning her attention back to Jax. You want emergency guardianship of a Kit Hari child? Do you have any idea what you're asking for? I know it won't be easy. It will be nearly impossible, Allura interrupted. Kit Hari have specific biological needs. Their emotional development follows different patterns than human children. Their cultural expectations. She shook her head. And that's before we get to the Kit Hari Preservation Society, who will fight tooth and nail against any human guardian. Jax leaned forward. She was living in squalor with an addict mother. Where was this Preservation Society then? Fair point, Allura conceded. But they're politically powerful, and they'll argue that Kalen belongs with her own kind. And what does Kalen want? Jax asked. Allura's expression shifted subtly. You're different than I expected. Most emergency guardianship applicants are looking for the stipend, not asking about the child's preferences. She studied him more carefully. What's your stake in this, Mr. Cole? Jackson Cole. And I don't have a stake. She asked for help, and I'm trying to give it. Allura tapped her stylus against the desk. Mr. Cole, there's something else you should know. Kalen's mother, Lena, was flagged in our system. Colonial Security believes she was involved with the Etherbloom trade. Jax tensed. Involved? How? Possibly as a courier. Etherbloom is manufactured by a cartel run by a coalition of Scar and Grum smugglers. They target vulnerable populations. Allura glanced at Kalen, who appeared absorbed in her snack, but whose large ears had tilted slightly in their direction. You think Kalen might be in danger? Jax concluded, his protective instincts flaring. It's a possibility we can't ignore. Allura hesitated. There's also the matter of your qualifications. Do you know anything about Kit Hari culture or physiology? Jax shook his head reluctantly. Nothing beyond the basics. Then you'll need a cultural liaison, someone from the Kit Hari community who can guide you. Allura's fingers danced across her console. There's a cultural educator named Lyra Vex. She's traditional, but fair. Will she help a human? She believes in what's best for the child regardless of species. I've sent her your information. If, and it's a big if, you're serious about this, you'll need to meet with her immediately. Jax felt Kalen's small paw slip into his. I'm serious. Elora studied them for a long moment before nodding. Then I'll process the emergency application. It gives you 72 hours of provisional guardianship while we assess the situation. During that time, you'll need to demonstrate basic competency in Kit Hari childcare, secure appropriate accommodations, and pass a background check. My background might be complicated, Jax admitted. Everyone's is, Elora replied with a hint of smile. What matters is who you are now. She handed him a data chip. This contains temporary authorization and basic information on Kit Hari needs. Lyra will contact you within the hour. As they stood to leave, Elora added, one more thing, Mr. Cole. If there's any connection between Lena and the cartel, be careful. These aren't people you want attention from. Outside the administrative complex, Jax felt the weight of his decision settle on his shoulders. Kalen looked up at him, her large eyes reflecting the outpost's artificial lighting. Are you my guardian now? She asked. Temporarily, Jax replied. We still have a lot to figure out. His comm unit beeped with an incoming message. Coordinates for a meeting with Lyra Vex at a location in the Gilded Quarter. We're going to meet someone who can help us understand each other better, Jax explained, guiding Kalen toward the transit station. The Gilded Quarter was a stark contrast to the utilitarian human sector. Dwellings were organically carved from rock, their surfaces adorned with softly pulsating luminescent patterns. Jax felt conspicuously out of place among the slender, orange-furred inhabitants who regarded him with undisguised curiosity. Kalen, however, walked with her head held high for the first time since he'd met her. It smells like home, she said softly. The coordinates led them to a small educational center. Inside, a tall, Kit Hari female with elaborate silver markings on her face waited, her posture rigid with disapproval. So, Lyra said, her musical language rendered into clipped standard, you are the human who presumes to care for one of our children. I don't presume anything, Jax replied evenly, meeting Lyra Vex's stern gaze. I'm trying to help a child who has no one else. The educator's silver-marked face remained impassive, but her ear membranes fluttered slightly, a subtle tell Jax couldn't interpret. She circled him slowly, her flowing garments whispering against the polished floor. Humans, she said, the word carrying a weight of history, always believe their intentions justify their actions. She knelt to Kalen's level, speaking in their native tongue, musical clicks and trills that bypassed the translation devices. Kalen responded hesitantly, her small paws making graceful gestures. The conversation continued for several minutes while Jax stood awkwardly by, completely excluded. Finally, Lyra rose. Kalen tells me you have been kind, that you promised food and safety when others ignored her. Her large amber eyes narrowed. But kindness alone is insufficient. A Kit Hari child has needs a human cannot intuitively understand. Then teach me, Jax said simply. Lyra's head tilted. It is not so simple as a few lessons, human. Our biology, our cultural imperatives, our spiritual practices. These are the foundation of a child's development. I'm a quick study. Are you? Lyra's tone sharpened. Then let us begin. First test. Kalen requires sustenance appropriate to her physiology. You have 1 hour to procure a proper Kit Hari evening meal without assistance. I will remain with her here. Jax blinked. You're testing me now? Did you expect a convenient schedule for your cultural education? Lyra's mouth curved in what might have been amusement. Parenting offers no such luxury. Recognizing the challenge for what it was, Jax nodded. 1 hour, proper Kit Hari evening meal. Any hints? That would defeat the purpose. Lyra gestured toward the door. The clock starts now. Outside, Jax fought down a surge of frustration. The Gilded Quarter sprawled around him, its organic architecture and unfamiliar signage suddenly intimidating. He had no idea what constituted proper food, let alone where to find it. Taking a deep breath, he approached an elderly Kithari male arranging glowing plants outside a small shop. "Excuse me," Jax began. "I need to find appropriate food for a Kithari child's evening meal. Could you direct me?" The elder regarded him with suspicion. Why would a human need such information? "I'm caring for an orphan girl," Jax explained, conscious of the minutes ticking by. "It's complicated." Something in his expression must have conveyed his sincerity because the elder's demeanor softened slightly. "2 streets east. Look for the establishment with azure light patterns. Tell Marin that Paul sent you." Jax thanked him and hurried through the winding streets, drawing curious stares from Kithari passers-by. He found a shop, more of a small greenhouse than a store by human standards, and was greeted by a young female Kithari with intricate blue markings. "Paul sent me," Jax said breathlessly. "I need a proper evening meal for a Kithari child." Marin's surprise was evident, but she asked practical questions about the child's age and clan markings before assembling a collection of items. Glowing fruits, what appeared to be protein-rich tubers, and a small container of clear liquid that smelled faintly of cinnamon. "The nectar must be warmed precisely to body temperature," she instructed as Jax paid with his credit chip. "Too hot or cold will cause digestive distress." "How do I know when's right?" Marin hesitated, then reached out to touch his wrist. "Like this, when it feels like the pulse point of your skin." Jax nodded, grateful for the specific instruction. "Thank you. You are doing something unusual," Marin observed, but not without precedent. There was a human doctor during the Proxima Plague who saved many Kithari children when our own healers had given up. With the carefully packaged meal, Jax made it back to the educational center with 12 minutes to spare. Lyra watched critically as he arranged the food according to Marin's instructions, warming the nectar using a small heating element she provided. "You sought help?" Lyra noted, observing the presentation. "I sought information," Jax corrected. "There's a difference between asking for guidance and expecting others to solve your problems." A flicker of what might have been approval crossed Lyra's face, a distinction many fail to recognize. She gestured for Kalen to eat. The girl approached the meal cautiously. She sampled each item, her expression brightening as she tasted the warm nectar. "It's like how Mama made it before," she said softly. Lyra nodded. "Acceptable, human. You have passed the first test." She gestured to a seating area. "While Kalen eats, we will discuss the second challenge." As they sat, Jax noticed a small holographic display on Lyra's wrist. A smiling Kithari man with a human woman, both holding an orange-furred child between them. "Your family?" he asked. Lyra's hand jerked, deactivating the display. "My sister's family," she corrected, her voice suddenly tight. "She married a human diplomat. Against our parents' wishes, against my counsel." "You disapproved?" "I feared for her," Lyra said quietly. Interspecies relationships face difficulties. Cultural misunderstandings that seem insignificant become chasms over time. Yet you help families like theirs now. Lyra's gaze drifted to Kalen. "My sister died 3 cycles ago. Her human husband continues to raise their daughter according to our ways despite the challenges. He proved me wrong, but he was exceptional. Most humans lack his dedication." "I'm not most humans," Jax said. "So you claim." "Your second test. Kithari children require specific sleep conditions. You must prepare appropriate accommodations by tomorrow morning. Additionally, you must learn and perform the ritual of peaceful rest, a ceremony essential to a Kithari child's development." Jax nodded, accepting the challenge. "And the third test will be revealed after you complete the second." Lyra's expression softened almost imperceptibly as she watched Kalen eating. She has suffered much. Her mother's addiction, her isolation. These leave marks on a child's spirit. "On Earth, we have a saying," Jax offered. "It takes a village to raise a child." "Perhaps," Lyra replied. "Our peoples have more in common than I first assumed." She rose gracefully. "Return tomorrow at first light. We will evaluate your preparations and continue your education." As Jax and Kalen left the educational center, the girl slipped her small paw into his. "Did I do well?" she asked anxiously. You did perfectly, Jax assured her, squeezing her paw gently. How do you feel about staying at my apartment tonight? Kaylin nodded, her large eyes reflecting the luminescent lights of her cultural district. Lyra says you're trying very hard. She doesn't think you'll succeed, but she looked up at him with unexpected confidence. I think you will. Jax's apartment in the human sector was utilitarian at best. A single room with a small kitchen alcove and bathroom. He'd never minded its limitations before, but now watching Kaylin take in the sparse furnishings, he saw it through new eyes. It's not much, he admitted, but we'll make it work for tonight. Kaylin nodded, her large eyes taking in every detail. Where will I sleep? That's our first project, Jax said, pulling up information on his data pad about Kit Hari's sleep requirements. According to the files Alora had provided, Kit Hari required higher humidity and ambient temperature than humans, plus a semi-reclined position due to their unique spinal structure. Jax improvised, creating a sleeping nest from his spare bedding on the small couch. He adjusted the environmental controls to increase humidity and warmth in that corner of the room. Is this okay? He asked as Kaylin tested the arrangement. It's missing the sleep chimes, she said hesitantly, and the bioluminescent night lamp. Jax frowned. I don't have those. We need to get them, Kaylin insisted. Or I'll have bad dreams. Mama always said the chimes keep the shadow spirits away. Jax checked the time. Most shops would be closed, but he remembered passing an all-night market near the transit hub that catered to various species. Let's go shopping, he decided. As they left the apartment building, Jax noticed a figure across the street quickly turn away. A scar male with distinctive ridge markings. Something about the alien's posture triggered Jax's instinct honed from years of living in Earth's rougher districts. Stay close, he murmured to Kaylin, taking a deliberately indirect route to the market. The night market buzzed with activity despite the late hour, its stalls illuminated by harsh artificial lighting. Jax kept Kaylin's small paw firmly in his while scanning for anything resembling Kit Hari's sleep aids. They found a stall selling interspecies comfort items, but the prices were exorbitant. Can I help you find something specific? Jax turned to find a familiar face. Marin from the food shop, her blue markings glowing softly. Marin, what are you doing here? Many Kit Hari work night shifts, she explained. Our shops adjust accordingly. She knelt to Kaylin's level. Hello again, little one. Are you settling in with your human guardian? Kaylin nodded shyly. He's trying to make me a proper sleep nest, but we don't have chimes or a night lamp. Marin's expression softened. Those are important. She glanced at Jax. You're taking Lyra's test seriously. I don't have much choice, Jax replied. Marin studied him for a moment. No, I suppose you don't. She straightened. Come with me. These market prices are robbery. She led them to a small shop tucked between larger establishments, its entrance marked only by subtle luminescent patterns. Inside, the atmosphere immediately shifted to something more organic and soothing. My personal shop, Marin explained. I specialize in cultural transition items. As she gathered sleep chimes and a small lamp, Jax noticed a holographic display similar to the one he'd glimpsed on Lyra's wrist. You're Lyra's niece, he realized, the daughter of her sister and the human diplomat. Marin paused, then nodded. Yes, though Aunt Lyra prefers not to discuss it. She handed Kaylin the lamp, which emitted a gentle blue glow. She took my mother's death very hard. She mentioned your father continues to raise you according to Kit Hari customs. He does. Marin's expression warmed. He believes honoring both halves of my heritage is important. Aunt Lyra didn't think he could do it, but he proved her wrong. She glanced at Jax. Perhaps you will, too. As Marin packaged their purchases, refusing payment despite Jax's protests, he asked, Any advice for passing Lyra's next test? The ritual of peaceful rest is simple in action, but complex in meaning, Marin explained. It's not just about the words or gestures. It's about creating a sense of security. She demonstrated the hand movements while reciting the ancestral protection verse. Jax practiced the motions until Marin nodded in approval. Thank you, he said sincerely, for everything. Humans have a saying about villages raising children, Marin replied with a smile. Kit Hari have a similar belief. Outside, the streets had grown quieter. Jax remained alert, scanning for this car he'd spotted earlier. They were halfway back to his apartment when he spotted movement in an alley ahead. Two figures with the distinctive silhouettes of Grum enforcers. Change of plans, Jax murmured, steering Kalen down a side street. We're taking the long way home. Are those bad people? Kalen whispered, her grip tightening on his hand. Just people we don't need to meet tonight, Jax replied, keeping his tone light despite the tension coiling in his gut. They made it back to the apartment without incident. But Jax's unease remained. While Kalen arranged her new sleep items in the nest he'd created, he secured the door and windows, then sent a brief message to Alora Dane about the possible surveillance. By the time he finished, Kalen was settled in her sleep nest, the chimes creating gentle melodic tones while the lamp cast soothing patterns across the ceiling. Will you do the ritual? She asked sleepily. Jax knelt beside her, performing the hand gestures Marin had taught him while reciting the protection verse. The words felt strange on his tongue, but Kalen's expression of contentment made the effort worthwhile. He had just finished when Kalen suddenly stiffened, her eyes widening in alarm. Her orange fur turned a pale gray, and her breathing became rapid and shallow. Kalen, what's wrong? Jax asked, panic rising in his chest. I can see her, Kalen whispered, her gaze fixed on empty space. Mama is calling me to join her in the shadow realm. Jax recognized the symptoms from Alora's information packet, a stress response unique to Kit Hari children, a form of waking nightmare triggered by trauma. Without proper intervention, it could escalate to dangerous levels. Kalen, focus on me, Jax said firmly, taking her small paws in his. Your mama isn't here. You're safe. But Kalen's condition worsened. Jax's mind raced through the limited information he'd absorbed about Kit Hari physiology. They responded to physical contact differently than humans. Their skin contained receptors that processed emotional states through touch. Acting on instinct, Jax gathered Kalen into his arms, holding her against his chest where she could feel his steady heartbeat. He continued the ritual gestures with one hand while maintaining the protective embrace. You're safe, he repeated. I've got you. Gradually, Kalen's breathing steadied. Color returned to her fur as she relaxed against him. She's gone, Kalen murmured eventually. You made the shadows go away. That's my job now, Jax said softly, continuing to hold her until she drifted into sleep. He was easing her back in her nest when his comm unit vibrated with an incoming message. It was from Lyra Vex and contained only 4 words. We need to talk. Jax had just settled Kalen back in her sleep nest when the soft chime of his apartment security system announced a visitor. On the monitor, he saw Lyra Vex, her normally composed features tight with urgency. He opened the door to find her clutching a small data crystal, her silver markings luminescent with stress, a Kit Hari physiological response he'd read about but never witnessed. You should have contacted me immediately when she had the shadow vision, Lyra said without preamble, brushing past him into the apartment. Jax frowned. How did you know about that? Marin called me after you left her shop. She sensed Kalen's distress. Lyra moved to the sleeping child, her long fingers hovering over Kalen's forehead without touching. The bond is already forming. Stronger than I anticipated. What bond? Lyra straightened, studying Jax with new intensity. You calmed her shadow vision without training. How? Instinct, Jax replied. She needed to feel safe, so I held her. And it worked. Lyra's tone held wonder and confusion in equal measure. A human with no knowledge of our ways successfully navigated a Kit Hari trauma response. She paced the small apartment, her flowing garments whispering against the furniture. This complicates everything. What does? Jax demanded, his patience wearing thin. And why are you here at this hour? Lyra stopped, her large eyes reflecting the soft glow of Kalen's night lamp. You're being watched. The cartel knows you have Kalen. I noticed, Jax said grimly. Scar and Grum enforcers. What do they want with her? Lyra held up the data crystal. This is why I came. Lena wasn't just an addict. She was trying to escape. She worked as a data clerk for a shipping company controlled by the cartel. When she discovered evidence of their operations, she tried to blackmail them for enough money to leave Ethelgard with Kalen. And they killed her for it, Jax concluded. Not intentionally. The ether bloom they gave her was contaminated, a warning that became a death sentence. Lyra's expression hardened. But Lena was clever. She hid the real evidence somewhere only Kaylin would know. Jax glanced at the sleeping child. She hasn't mentioned anything like that. Because she doesn't know she knows, Lyra explained. Lena would have encoded it in something meaningful to Kaylin. A toy, a song, a bedtime story. Jax processed this information. The protective instinct that had been growing since he first met Kaylin intensifying. So these cartel thugs think she can lead them to evidence that could destroy their operation. Yes, and they won't hesitate to take her. Lyra's voice caught. I've seen what happens to children in their custody. The raw emotion in her tone made Jax look at her more closely. This is personal for you. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. Before I became an educator, I worked with refugee children. Many had parents who fell into the cartel's debt. Her elegant hands clenched. I couldn't save them all. The vulnerability in her admission shifted something between them. For the first time, Jax saw beyond her stern exterior to the passionate advocate beneath. There's something else you should know, Lyra continued, moving closer to Kaylin. What happened tonight, the way you calmed her shadow vision. It's significant. Kit Hari formed deep psycho-emotional connections called soul kinships. They usually develop between blood relatives, but occasionally, she met Jax's eyes. Occasionally, they form across species boundaries when a profound need meets a profound response. You're saying Kaylin and I have formed this soul kinship. The beginning of one, Lyra confirmed. It's rare, but not unprecedented. My sister and her human husband shared such a bond. It's why he could raise their daughter so successfully after her death. The bond transcended cultural differences. Jax sat heavily on the edge of his bed. So, what does this mean for Kaylin's guardianship? It means separating you could harm her psychologically. Lyra's expression was complex. Professional concern mingled with something more personal. And it means I was wrong about you, Jackson Cole. The use of his first name, spoken in her musical accent, created an unexpected warmth in his chest. You've passed all my tests, she continued. The meal, the sleep preparations, and most importantly, your instinctive response to her crisis. You've demonstrated more understanding of a Kithary's needs than many of our own people would with a human child. Before Jax could respond, Kaylin stirred in her sleep nest. Both adults moved toward her simultaneously, their hands brushing as they reached to comfort her. The contact sent a jolt of awareness through Jax. Lyra's skin was warmer than a human's. Their eyes met over Kaylin's sleeping form, and Jax saw his own protective instinct mirrored in Lyra's gaze, along with something else. An unmistakable flicker of attraction that transcended species differences. Kaylin settled without fully waking, and Lyra slowly withdrew her hand. We should let her rest, she murmured. They moved to the kitchen alcove, speaking in hushed tones. What's our next move? Jax asked. We need to discover what evidence Lena hid and get it to Colonial Security before the cartel realizes we have it. Lyra's expression grew troubled. But first, we need a safer location. My residence in the Gilded Quarter has better security. You're inviting us to stay with you? Lyra's silver markings shimmered slightly. It's the logical solution. My home has proper accommodations for Kaylin, and the cartel is less likely to act aggressively in the Kithari district. And the fact that you've decided I'm not a cultural barbarian after all? Jax asked with a hint of a smile. That simplifies matters, Lyra admitted, her usual formality slipping. I've misjudged humans before. My sister always said my prejudice was my greatest flaw. We all have blind spots, Jax said. On Earth, I avoided responsibility. Came to Ethelgard to escape my past. He glanced at Kaylin. Funny how life finds ways to make you face yourself. The honesty of his admission created a moment of connection between them. Lyra moved closer, her height nearly matching his. Humans are surprising, she said softly. Your adaptability, your instinctive compassion. These are qualities my people sometimes forget in our adherence to tradition. The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken possibility. Jax became acutely aware of her presence, the subtle scent of exotic flowers, the graceful curve of her neck, the intelligence in her large eyes. A sudden noise from outside the apartment shattered the moment. Jax moved to the security monitor to see two Grum enforcers in the corridor attempting to override the door lock. "They found us," he said grimly, reaching for the stunner. "We need to leave now." "Take Kalen," Jax whispered urgently, passing the still drowsy child to Lyra. "The service corridor connects to the maintenance tunnels. I'll hold them off." Lyra's eyes widened. "You can't face two Grum enforcers alone." "I'm not planning to fight them," Jax replied. "Just delay them. Go." As Lyra slipped through the service door with Kalen, Jax quickly rearranged the apartment to make it appear they'd left in a hurry. He overturned furniture, left the main door unlocked, and positioned himself behind it just as the Grum overrode the security system. The two hulking aliens burst in, their scaly hides gleaming under the apartment's lights. Jax waited until they were fully inside before slipping out behind them, slamming the door and jamming the manual lock with his utility knife. Their enraged roars followed him as he sprinted down the corridor to the maintenance access where Lyra waited with Kalen clutched against her chest. "That won't hold them long," Jax said, leading them into the dimly lit tunnels that ran beneath the residential complex. "Where are we going?" Kalen asked, her voice small but remarkably steady. "Somewhere safe," Jax assured her, navigating the labyrinthine passages with the confidence of someone who'd spent a lifetime finding escape routes in hostile environments. They emerged into a service alley 2 blocks from Jax's apartment. The outpost's night cycle was in full effect, the streets nearly deserted as they made their way toward the Kit Hari district, taking a circuitous route to avoid main thoroughfares. "How did you know about those tunnels?" Lyra asked as they paused in a shadowed doorway. "On Earth, I grew up in the Chicago arcology after my parents died," Jax explained, his voice low. "You learn the back ways, or you didn't survive." Lyra's expression softened. "You've been a survivor your whole life." "Until now," Jax replied, his gaze shifting to Kalen. "Now I have someone else to think about." They continued through the darkened outpost, Kalen growing heavier in Lyra's arms. Jax took the child from her, cradling Kalen against his chest as they crossed into the Kit Hari district. Lyra's home was nestled within a cluster of organically shaped dwellings, its exterior illuminated by subtle luminescent patterns. Inside, the space opened into a warm, inviting environment that immediately felt more like a home than Jax's sterile apartment ever had. "The guest chambers are prepared," Lyra said, leading them to a room with a proper Kit Hari sleep platform. "It will be more comfortable for Kalen than your improvised nest." Jax settled the drowsy child onto the platform, arranging her sleep chimes and lamp. Kalen clutched at his hand before he could withdraw. "My music box?" she murmured. "I need my special music box." Jax and Lyra exchanged a significant look. "What music box, little one?" Lyra asked gently. "The one Mama gave me with the dancing starlights." Kalen's eyes were already closing. "She said it would always protect me." "We'll get it for you," Jax promised, completing the ritual of peaceful rest as Kalen drifted back to sleep. In Lyra's living area, they spoke in hushed tones. "The evidence," Lyra said, "it must be in this music box." Jax nodded. "We need to go back to Lena's home. Too dangerous. The cartel will be watching it now. Then we'll need help." Jax activated his comm unit. Elora Dane can coordinate with Colonial Security. And Silas. He has connections throughout the outpost. As Jax made the calls, Lyra prepared a restorative tea, her movements graceful in the soft light of her home. When she handed him a steaming cup, their fingers brushed, lingering longer than necessary. "You continue to surprise me, Jackson Cole," she said softly. "Most humans would have abandoned Kalen to the system. Few would risk their lives for an alien child." "Maybe I'm not most humans," he replied, echoing his earlier words, but with new meaning. "No," Lyra agreed, her silver markings shimmering with emotion. "You are decidedly not." The space between them seemed charged with possibility. But before either could act, Jax's comm unit chimed. Elora had arranged for a security team to retrieve the music box from Lena's home. They would deliver it within the hour. As they waited, the adrenaline of their escape began to fade, leaving Jax acutely aware of Lyra's presence. She moved around her home, securing doors and windows, her flowing garments accentuating the elegant lines of her body. "Your home is beautiful," Jax said, breaking the charged silence. "It's been solitary," Lyra replied, her gaze meeting his until now. The admission hung between them, an invitation neither was quite ready to voice. Instead, they spoke of practical matters, Kalen's guardianship, the evidence against the cartel, the future they might build together. When the music box arrived, a delicate creation of iridescent shell and metal that projected star-like patterns when opened, they discovered a data crystal hidden in its base. It contained shipping manifests and financial records that implicated high-ranking colonial officials in the Etherbloom trade. "This will dismantle their entire operation," Lyra breathed, examining the files. "Lena's sacrifice won't be in vain." With the evidence secured and transmitted to colonial security, the immediate danger passed. In the quiet aftermath, Jax found himself standing with Lyra on her home's small balcony overlooking the luminescent gardens of the Gilded Quarter. "What happens now?" he asked, watching the play of light across her silver-marked features. "The formal guardianship hearing is in 3 days," Lyra replied. "With a soul kinship forming and my endorsement as cultural liaison, there should be no obstacles. And after that," Lyra turned to face him fully. "Kithari tradition holds that a child's guardians should share a dwelling for stability." Her markings shimmered. "It would be logical for you to remain here with Kalen, with me." The invitation, in her words, was unmistakable. Jax stepped closer, drawn by something deeper than physical attraction. A recognition of kindred spirits across the boundaries of species and culture. "Is that what you want?" he asked, his voice low. "What I want," Lyra said, her musical accent more pronounced with emotion, "is to explore this unexpected connection between us. Humans call it chemistry, I believe. Among other things," Jax murmured, reaching up to trace the silvery markings along her cheekbone. Lyra's skin warmed beneath his touch. "My sister once told me that loving across species boundaries requires courage, that the rewards justify the challenges." "Your sister was wise," Jax said, drawing her closer. Their first kiss was tentative, an exploration of alien territory for both, but the second was not. Cultural differences melted away as ancient instincts took over. Later, as they lay entwined in Lyra's sleeping chamber, the patterns on her skin casting a gentle glow over them both, Jax marveled at how quickly life could change. 6 days ago, he had been alone, a drifter with no purpose beyond survival. Now he had a child to protect, a woman to love, and a future brighter than any he could have imagined on Earth. "You're thinking very loudly," Lyra murmured against his chest. "Just wondering what Kalen will think of all this," Jax replied, stroking the silken length of her white hair. "She already knows," Lyra said with a smile. "Kithari children are quite perceptive about emotional bonds. She asked me yesterday if you would be my mate as well as her guardian." Jax laughed softly. "Smart kid indeed." Lyra propped herself up to look at him. "The cartel leaders will be arrested by morning. Kalen will be safe. We can build something meaningful here. A family that transcends species. Humanity's greatest strength," Jax said thoughtfully. "Not our technology or our resilience, but our capacity to find family wherever we go in the universe." 3 months later, Jax stood in the Colonial Administrative Complex, a small paw in his, Lyra at his side. Elora Dane presented them with the final guardianship documents, making official what their hearts had known since that first desperate day when a frightened alien child had pleaded, "Please follow me home." "Congratulations," Elora said with a genuine smile. "You've created something special here, a bridge between cultures that others will follow." As they left the complex, Kalen nearly skipping between them, Jax reflected on the strange path that had led him here. A chance encounter, a heartbreaking discovery, a courageous choice, all culminating in this moment of perfect belonging. "What are you thinking?" Lyra asked, her fingers intertwining with his. Jack smiled, watching Kaelin dance ahead of them, her orange fur glowing with health and happiness. I'm thinking that sometimes the universe knows exactly what our hearts need, even before we do. A very human sentiment, Lyra teased. Maybe, Jax agreed, pulling her close for a kiss that drew curious stares from passersby. But I think you like that about me.